have this board that a lot of people have called my board of inspiration, but in reality, this is a board of where I've actually come from in so many ways. And it makes me wonder, first of all, if you have ever had a crazy idea. And I'd like for you to think for 1 second about possibly a crazy idea that you had, that you may have pursued, or that you may have been so surprised by how crazy it was that you just let it go. But in a lot of ways, I think life is about crazy ideas. And when you look at my board, some of the things that you see here are trusting your ideas, believing over here that you can, or possibly sometimes your life is all about how you're fueled, which if you look down here, Starbucks is one of my best friends, and caffeine is definitely my fuel. And so when I think about how my life has evolved, there's been a lot of coffee along the way to get us to the point where we are today. But in a lot of ways, when I think about it, there's one thing up here that really says a lot about who I am as a person, which I think might start saying a lot about all of us collectively, because growing up in South Carolina, my grandmother used to always say this thing to me, and to my brother and to my cousins, and she would make it so clear sometimes when she said it that I almost, in the beginning, didn't know what she meant. But she would say, if you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right. And I never quite understood that so much until I started getting about my life. And I started realizing that what my grandmother did for me as a person growing up was to teach me how to be a possibilities person. And I think in a lot of ways, that has been something that has really been the core of who I am and who I've tried to become as I've become professionally involved with a lot of people over the course of my career. Now, of course, I thought that this was my grandmother's saying, but honestly, I came to find out that it was not really my grandmother's quote at all. Henry Ford had said this at one point along the way, but I just give my grandmother credit for instilling in me this sense of this idea that if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So back in 1993, there started to be a sense within me that I wanted to start an organization for students who were in their first or second year of college who'd done well academically. And one of the things that I thought about in exploring this idea was I was working at the time on campus at George Washington University, and I thought of a couple of student leaders that I wanted to bring in to talk to about this idea because, first of all, they knew a lot about me, and they knew where I had come from, and they knew what was important to me. But I thought the best way to get them to drop by was to have a lasagna dinner. And it was one of those moments of, I think a lasagna dinner would be a good way to lure Chris and Aaron to come to my apartment so we could actually talk about this idea that I was generating around NSCS. And so there was a couple of things about that. One, they asked me why I was having lasagna when actually I don't cook. So they knew enough about me to know that I didn't cook. The other thing that they knew about me, I think, or at least I knew this and was kind of embarrassed about it, was this was actually my oven, which sort of doubled for a storage spot because I didn't have a lot of room in my apartment and I never cooked, so it was just a good way to put things. So in order for me to make a lasagna dinner, I actually had to clean out my oven, but I really believed I could do it. So anyway, I had Chris and Aaron come by, and I remember starting the conversation by saying, I have this crazy idea. And this crazy idea has actually come from a point that was connected all the way back to my undergrad experience at the University of South Carolina, where I got involved with the Center for the Study of the Freshman Year Experience. And when I got involved with the Center for the Study of the Freshman Year Experience, I started realizing that there's a lot that goes on for students who transition from high school to college. And what I started realizing as I got involved as a student, and it's probably one of the lessons that I took away from college that I would like to remind all of you as new members about, is you should get involved with things in your college experience. And I know there's a lot of things that happen at Northern Virginia Community College that could give you a great leadership experience. You can get involved with NSCS, for example, and take on a leadership role within this organization, or you should find something here that you can contribute to and you can generate some leadership skills from. Because in having that experience, you'll learn a lot about yourself. And when you learn a lot about yourself, you also might start discovering a lot of paths that you'd like to take with your life. And so my involvement in college took me down this path of, I want to be involved and engaged with college students, and I want to help make their experience in college much better. And so I actually went from being involved in college to a graduate school program to ending up at George Washington University, where I was able to get involved with a lot of things with students, but I also was able to have the idea of starting the National Society of Collegiate Scholars. So I think back to that night that we had dinner, and one of the things, obviously, that came out of that was a very nice lasagna, which I was proud of. And I think to this day, if you met Chris and Aaron, they would tell you, I'm sure it was the best lasagna that they ever had. But the other thing that came out of that conversation, which started out with this sense that I had a crazy idea, was the whole idea of the National Society of Collegiate Scholars, which is now an organization that all of you have become a part of. And one of the things that I'm super proud of is I look at the history of the organization, and I look at now going into our 18th year, and I see an organization on a map that looks like this. And what's amazing to me when I think about it is that a dinner conversation can turn into an organization that now is on more than 300 college campuses across the country. We're now inviting students to join NSCS not only at four-year campuses, but community colleges and online universities as well. And when you look across the country, just to point it out, we're really proud to have chapters also in Hawaii, Alaska, and Puerto Rico, just in case you didn't know where those were. Sorry. But NSCS has gone from that idea, that crazy idea, to not really being a crazy idea at all. Because what NSCS has done is really started to make a significant difference for a lot of people. And that makes me super proud, and it encourages me to remind people all the time that they should believe in themselves. And they should believe, and you should believe, in the possibilities that you can create in the world. Because my grandmother told me that, I remember that, and it's been a part of trying to make a difference all along the way. I can also think when I look back at my desk, and I look at the things that have kind of shaped the history of who I am, there's one thing on here too that I like to put on here, just because as you go through life, you're going to meet people who aren't necessarily possibility people at all. And they're going to be the ones that tell you all the reasons that you can't do what it is you want to do. And I know this is true because I've met these people. And when I was starting NSCS, I'm absolutely sure that there are far more people that told me all of the reasons that NSCS would not work, should not exist, or would never make it, than there were the people who were there telling me that this is a really great thing that you should do. And so there's a little thing here that I look at, and I remember, whenever the things start getting tough, because in reality you have to believe in yourself enough, and you have to believe in the things that you want to accomplish enough, that you can actually go and make it happen, even sometimes when you maybe don't feel the support or the love that you need to make that a reality. And that's really important, because without doing that, sometimes some of the things that need to exist in the world maybe won't come to be. So now that you are all getting inducted into NSCS and you start thinking about how we can help you, first of all, I'd like to remind you that NSCS membership is for a lifetime. And when I think about NSCS at Northern Virginia Community College, one of the things that's been important to us as we've become a part of the community college campus is for you to think about what your future looks like. And so say, for example, you go from here to George Mason University, we want you to know that once you arrive to a four-year campus, you have a place to belong. And we have a lot of chapters on four-year campuses, and we want to connect you to the other high achievers on the four-year campuses once you get there. And I think that's going to be a really great benefit for you as a member. The other things that we can do for you are always the things that I think come sometimes out of nowhere. And I want to show you this is Julian Borden. And Julian actually joined NSCS in 2001 at UCLA. And he remembered becoming a part of the organization. He remembered being an active member, and then he graduated, and then he went to Stanford and got an MBA, and then he got a master's in education. And then Julian, who considers himself the purpose finder, and if you happen to be on Twitter, you can follow Julian at Purpose Finder. And what he believes his mission in life is to help people find the reason that they exist for. And so Julian called me out of the blue and said, I'm a member of NSCS, and I'm doing something that I think is very aligned with what you're trying to accomplish, with the whole reason that you started NSCS. And I'm wondering if we could work together in trying to make that purpose more of a reality. So with Julian, who is a lifetime member of the organization, we created a program last year called Route 66, and we actually went across the country and we got NSCS members together to hear Julian's story about how to find your passion in life. And I think about this because Julian told me that he knew as a lifetime member, but he actually was a little bit anxious about calling me because he didn't really know if I would be that interested in talking to him, or if I would actually understand this idea that he had of trying to get his message in front of NSCS members. And so he almost didn't call. But I was super happy that he did, because together, and we're still working together, and we still are doing new things together to help make your experience better. But it all came out of the fact that Julian picked up the phone, took the initiative, and actually trusted what he thought was also his crazy idea of finding a way to work together. The other thing that's happening that's incredible for NSCS members is the number of companies and organizations that look at NSCS as being incredibly valuable and look at as showing that you, and one of the things that I like to remind NSCS members about is you are essentially in the top 20% of your class. So 80% of your classmates weren't invited to join NSCS. And that's like a really distinguishing feature of NSCS membership, and that says a lot to schools that you're considering transferring to, or companies that are actually looking at you as a great potential employee. And so one example that I'd like to use quickly here is an organization called Teach for America. And you may be familiar with this organization. It was started by a great woman and a friend of mine, Wendy Koch. And Wendy and I, back in 1999, we partnered up together to find ways to introduce Teach for America to NSCS members as a good potential opportunity. We think our missions really do align, because both of us are about getting into the communities as much as possible and making a difference. Teach for America selects teachers to go for 2 years into communities that are lacking teachers, sometimes at schools that have trouble attracting teachers, and helping those students have good people to lead them in the classroom for 2 years. So just a couple of years ago, I was actually in Boston for a conference. I was serving as the president of the Association of College Honor Societies, and we had a keynote speaker that was talking about community service, and we thought it would be a great idea to have a student come over to do the introduction of the person that was going to give the keynote on why community service is important for honor societies. And I really love the fact that the keynote speaker was addressing all of the honor societies, and there was about 73 different honor societies represented there. And it was this sense about the fact that honor societies are great organizations to be leading the charge for doing more service in the community. How do you get these high achievers, these bright, ambitious, great people into the communities to really make a difference? And what made me super proud, as you've heard today, is in 1994, when NSCS was started, service was a part of our mission. It was one of our pillars, and from the day we started, we were about getting students engaged in the community. So for me, the message was something that we've been doing all along. For other honor societies, they started thinking about the possibilities. So I knew of a student who happened to be in the Boston area, and I called him and I said, "Hey Dave, would you mind coming over and doing an introduction at this conference of other honor societies, and maybe not talk so much about the fact that you were involved with NSCS, but more talk about your Honor Society experience and what that meant for you. So that night rolled around, and Dave Jose came to this meeting to do the introduction. And Dave actually joined NSCS, just like you guys did, at Providence College. And Dave was someone who had gone to Catholic school his whole life, and then he ended up at Providence College. He joined NSCS, he went to the meetings, he evolved to actually becoming a chapter officer. He was president of their chapter. And then Dave actually ran for the National Leadership Council, which is another great opportunity for you to get involved if you would like on the national level. And as Dave was president of the National Leadership Council, that role itself meant that he served on our board of directors. And so he got to see another side of NSCS that I think was a really terrific experience. So Dave comes over and he gets up, and remembering that I asked him to be a little bit kind of Switzerland and neutral about his Honor Society experience, he started telling the story. You know, I joined an Honor Society, I got involved with the Honor Society, which overemphasizes the message that you're hearing tonight, that you're really going to have a much better NSCS experience, and I would say you're going to have a much better life experience if you actually get engaged with it. You got to show up, and you've got to actually do something for it to actually mean something. So Dave talked about the fact that he joined NSCS, he became a chapter officer. Actually, he said he joined an honor society. He became an officer in his honor society. He got involved on the national level with his honor society. But what happened that he wasn't expecting was he had never heard of Teach for America. And he said he was intrigued by this, but he never thought about it. And so he applied for Teach for America, and he ended up getting selected. And so Dave ended up going to New Orleans just after Katrina. And Dave stood at the podium and said that that experience changed his whole life. And he said, my life experience so far had never given me the chance to go to a gang funeral. My life experience would have been imaginable that I would have been slashed by a box cutter in the classroom. And actually, my life experience probably would have never been thought about in terms of loading up 6 people who I had come to believe in, and they believed in me, and drive them around and have them look at colleges. Because they told him if it weren't for him being in their classroom, they probably would have never even thought of college as a possibility. And Dave said, you know what, when I think about it, you know, my Honor Society experience actually took me to a place where I was able to make a difference that I would have never imagined on the day that I walked into college or the day that I joined the Honor Society. And he said, doing Teach for America actually was this realization that sometimes you can't actually help everybody, but sometimes you can really do your best to help some people, and you know those some people are going to have a better life because of it. And he said, if it weren't for my Honor Society, I would have never been able to stand here and tell you this. And then he sort of said, oh, forget about it. I'm a member of NSCS, and I'm really proud. It was really one of those nice moments that made me really proud because he was trying so hard to be neutral. And so I say all this because Dave's experience is really interesting, because recently Teach for America was in our office downtown telling us that this past year they had 58,000 people apply for Teach for America opportunities. They had 5,300 slots for teachers across the country. Out of the people who were actually selected, 10% of those were NSCS members. NSCS members comprise the largest group of people who are actually doing Teach for America across the country. And so I brought up the fact that NSCS is somewhat new to the community college space, and they perked up immediately and were like, that's excellent, because we're definitely looking for ways to get more connected with community college students. So I would like for all of you to possibly think about Teach for America or the number of other companies that we work with as opportunities and benefits for ways that you can actually think about being more involved or more engaged and even hopefully more excited about your NSCS membership. So the best way to go about living your life is to really trust your crazy ideas. Believe in yourself and believe in the possibilities. And just like Julian, if you have an idea for something that you think could actually be helped along because you're a member and that NSCS could help you along, those are the things that I would really love to hear about. So I can actually be reached in all kinds of ways. You can follow me on Twitter, connect with me on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, or it's easy to email me just by my last name at nscs.org. But I really do want you to have an incredible NSCS experience, and I really do appreciate the fact that you have become a part of the organization, and I want it to be something that is really meaningful to you because you've done something super incredible, and for that you should be totally and overly congratulated for. The other thing I'll tell you really quickly is just earlier I was talking to Mantu, and we were talking about the fact that he's thinking about transferring to George Washington University, which is where NSCS started. And I was telling him that I'm super excited to announce that just 2 weeks ago, we came to an agreement with George Washington University, and it's our first school that's doing this, but for any NSCS community college member who's accepted and transfers to GW, you're automatically going to get a $20,000 scholarship from GW because they believe in what So I wanted GW to be the first school that launched this because I wanted the place that NSCS started to be the first place to lead the charge of providing our community college members with the benefit that they deserve. And so we're working hard to create other scholarship opportunities just like those, and we'll be letting you know those things as they start unfolding over the next little bit of time. So again, thank you so much for inviting me to come, and I really do appreciate everything that you're going to do and take away from your NSCS membership. Thank you.